To be or action verb? That is the question.
Hello students, it's me, Mr. Armstrong, once again, and today's lesson is mostly about the verb to be as compared to action verbs. So, why does this one verb need a lesson all to itself? Because it is a highly irregular verb. It is a verb that is very common. However, it is also often very difficult for students to recognize. Hopefully, we can clear some of that up today. To start, though, we're going to look at action verbs. A quick review. Whee! Action verbs are the first types of verbs that we learn about when we're studying grammar. In fact, when we first start to learn about verbs, we think of them primarily as actions. But verbs, of course, can also just state the way something is, a statement of being. Let's look at a few examples of action verbs in their infinitive form. Remembering, of course, that the infinitive form always starts with the word to buy, to do, to repair, to speak, to walk. These are all actions. They're all something that is being done. Something is happening. Some examples of how these might be used in a sentence are right here. I buy books. It's an action. You can see me doing it. They do chores. We don't know what their chores are, but we could see them doing it. It's something that's happening. Bob repairs houses. Presumably Bob the builder. Tamara speaks in class, or we walk to school. In all of these instances, the verb in the sentence is an action. Something that's happening, something you can see taking place. The verb to be and other linking verbs are different than this. They simply state the way something is. Let's take a look at that verb, to be. To be is probably the most common verb, but because it's so irregular, I've noticed that it's often difficult for students to recognize it as a verb. Also because it's not an action, it just is. And it's such an important verb, it's hard to even describe it without using different forms of it. It is a statement of being. It's just the way it is. However, it is very irregular, which means not regular. With a regular verb, we would just change an ending perhaps. But with to be, we change the entire word, and you just have to memorize them. Let's take a look at what I mean. We'll start with the present tense. The present tense of to be is am, is, and are. What happened to the be and the e? These are radically different words than the original infinitive. They are very irregular. You know all of these words. You use them all the time. Recognizing them as verbs, however, is what we're trying to practice, what we're trying to do. I am. He is. She is. It is. They are. We are. These are all present tense forms of to be. Write them down. Write them down 100 times until you remember that these words are always verbs. What about the past tense? The past tense is every bit as irregular. They're different from the present tense even, and they are still different from the infinitive to be. Was, were. Now we have W's. What happened to the B's? I was, he was, she was, it was. They were, we were. Write them down. Write them down 100 times. Identify them as verbs every time because they will always be verbs. They might be helping verbs, they might be linking verbs, but they will always be verbs. Always. But let's take a look at some examples. We'll start with present tense examples. The first one, I am smart. Nothing is happening in this sentence. Nothing is taking place. There are no actions. It's simply a statement of the way that something is. I is the subject, am is the verb. Carlos is a dancer. Present tense, form of to be. The only verb in this sentence is the word is. Is always a verb. You are tall. Jane and Scott are doctors. In none of these examples is there an action taking place. They are all just statements of the way something is. How about the past tense? Let's look at those examples. We start with the subject I again. I was angry. There's no action. Lurch was a butler. I guess he's not anymore. Or maybe he was a butler and he's still a butler and he will be a butler. Regardless, was is the verb. There is no action. Was is an irregular past tense form of to be. The students were hungry. Just a statement. We were zombies. We got better? Regardless, all of these sentences are just statements of being.
Page turn sound effect.
Now, to be is not the only irregular verb. There are other irregular verbs. We'll study those a little bit later. But that is all for today. We have had a very nice time discussing the verb to be and action verbs. We'll teach you again very soon. Well, maybe just me. I don't know if he's coming back. Yorick, are you coming back?
Maybe. I'd like to. English is fun.
Well, you heard it there. English is fun. All right. I look forward to teaching you again in the not too distant future. Have a great and glorious day. Peace be with you. Goodbye.